Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to open up with a scripture that you have probably heard, but I'm a huge fan of it because it's such an amazing analogy. This verse is Hebrews 12:1, which says, "Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God." The reason that I love this is because of the accuracy of the verse. Paul writes here that we need to lay aside every weight during the race, and that's a whole different message. But my focus here today is on the imperative to continue to move. And that's why I'm entitling this today, Keep Moving. And as a runner, I can attest to the fact that if you stop moving in a race, you are in serious trouble. Obviously, the objective in a race is to get closer to the finish line, not remain stationary. I remember one race in grade 10. I was at EASA, which is an Eastern Ontario race. This race was a pretty important one for our team because if we managed to place in the top 4 teams, then we advanced to OFSA, which is the Ontario Championship. Now, this was my first year of running because the year previous to this, I was pretty chunky. I wasn't in great shape for running, so this was my first serious year of running. I had taken up running as a hobby in the second semester of grade 9 and had lost 30 pounds. So I was actually getting to be pretty fast at this point. My team had won the county championship. I had had a great race, and we were feeling pretty confident about our chances. So here's the catch with this particular race. Only the top 5 runners on your team advance to the provincials if you place in the top 4. So you're not only racing for your team, you're racing against your team as well. My team had 8 members, so I had to beat 3 of my teammates in order to place in the top 5 and advance to OFSA. The race started off great. I had a great sprint off the start and secured a spot in 4th place on my team, and I maintained this position for about 3 kilometers of the race. I was running fast, I was passing people, my 4 teammates were behind me, I was feeling good. And I was already looking forward. I remember thinking in the race, wow, I can't wait for OFSA. I'm going to advance to provincials. This is so exciting. And I was confident in my team's capability of placing in the top 4. And then I noticed something. I looked down at my left shoe and I realized it was becoming untied. And so I made a decision in that moment, okay, I'm just going to stop and tie my shoe. I wouldn't want to trip during this race, and everyone else on my team is probably way behind me, so I'm probably safe to just kneel down for a second and tie my shoe. So I knelt down and began to untie my shoe. It was kind of loose, and I had to undo a knot, and then I had to make sure I double knotted my shoes, and it probably took like 20 to 30 seconds. But during this time, 2 of my team members ran past me. And when I got back up, a little less than 2 kilometers from the finish line, I had some serious ground to catch up on because you have to realize that 30 seconds is a huge difference in a race. I had to fight harder than ever before, run faster than before, and was now in a spot far worse than I was previously. And when I got within the last 400 meters, all I had to do was catch one guy on my team who was only about 100 meters ahead of me. So I kicked into high gear. I was running fast. I was sprinting. I was trying to catch up to him, and he looked over his shoulder and he saw me coming, so he's sprinting faster than before. And then we got to the finish line, and we're both neck and neck, and he beat me by a single step. And my coach asked me at the end of the race, "Sam, what happened, man? You were way ahead of those guys. You had it in the bag. You were going to advance." And my response shocked him. "I stopped to tie my shoe in the race, coach." And he replied, "Never stop for anything during a race." And my team went on to qualify provincials, and I did not get to go to the big race. And I learned that day the hard way that never, under any circumstance, should you stop during a race and let everyone else fly past you. Just as Paul says, lay aside everything. Keep your eyes on the prize. Keep moving. There's an interesting story in Scripture that I believe communicates this message in a unique way. In the book of Exodus, we know of Moses and his calling by God to lead the people of Israel out of captivity. And Moses struggles with various insecurities in his life, and God helps him through some of this fear. And then Moses goes before Pharaoh, and he demands many, many times for Pharaoh to let his people go. And Pharaoh refuses, and many times God sends plague. There's 12 plagues that are sent on Egypt, and they're horrible plagues, and the people of Israel are demanding to be let go. And then finally, Pharaoh gives in and sends the people away. So all of Israel is leaving Egypt, and they're moving towards their promised land. Then Pharaoh realizes, hey, I actually want my people back. I want my slaves back here doing my work for me. So he sends his army after them. The Israelites are camped out by the sea and stuck in the midst of the sea in front of them and the Egyptians behind them, moving in, ready to capture them. And in Exodus 14:11, the Israelites say to Moses, because there are no graves in Egypt, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you so dealt with us to bring us up out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we told you in Egypt, saying, let us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than we should die in the wilderness. And Moses, he's clearly worried here. It seems like there's no other option for them but to panic and remain trapped. So he responds by saying, do not be afraid. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall see no more forever. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. You could say here, oh wow, Moses is showing some real faith, believing that the Lord will take care of them. He's telling them, stand still. Don't worry about things. God's going to take care of you. You don't have to keep moving. But as Pastor emphasized at our drive-in service, it isn't enough to say, God will take care of anything. I'm just going to stand here and do nothing. Because although Moses was dealing with things the way he saw fit, by telling the people to stand still, God's response in the next verse is, why do you cry to me? Tell the children of Israel to go forward. God takes Moses' plan and says, wait a second, why are you telling everyone to stand still? True faith requires action, and you're going to have to move into an area where you don't feel so comfortable. Keep moving, keep pressing onward. I know there's a stormy sea in front of you. I know there's Egyptians behind you, but if you stand still, they're going to catch up to you. So keep moving. I will part the waters for you to pass through. Don't stand still. You see, our plan when we reach an obstacle in our life is often like Moses. We decide to stand still and wait for God to do something for us. We assume that standing still and waiting for the obstacle to move is the solution. Sure, he's the God who can move mountains, but if you're not willing to climb that mountain for him, he's not going to move it for you. You have to keep moving in order for your faith to have effect. Right now, we're in the middle of the greatest obstacle in modern history. We're confined to our homes, unable to join together as believers in our natural setting, and there is strife across the nation. But if we sit still and wait for God to do something, then we aren't showing true faith. Sometimes the miracle in someone else's life is you. Sometimes the answer to someone else's problem is you. And if you stop moving, then you aren't going to be in the right place at the right time to reach someone else's life. As soon as the Israelites start moving towards the Red Sea, an impossible, immovable object, then God parts the waters for them to walk through on dry land. Moses and the people of Israel didn't have time to stop and tie their shoe. They had to keep moving, regardless of the obstacles that they were facing. They say that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. And this is so true. Because if you don't keep moving, if you don't start with that first step, then you're not going to go anywhere. You have got to travel for a little while before that journey actually becomes a journey. You have to have a destination in mind that you're moving towards. And you can't stop moving, because if you turn around at any point, all the steps that you already took will mean nothing anymore. We are on a journey to heaven, and the only way to get there is to keep moving. Proverbs 24:16 says, for a righteous man may fall 7 times and rise again, but the wicked shall fall by calamity. Here this wise proverb says, you might fall, you might stumble, you may have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, but get back up, keep moving. If you are righteous, the true testimony of your life is that every time that you fell, you got back up again. You did not let the obstacles of your life leave you on the ground. You didn't fall on the ground and stay down, but every time that you fell, you got back up again. Now, you may argue with me today and point out a scripture that says, wait on the Lord and he will renew your strength. You may say, I'm just waiting for God to renew my strength. I'll just wait for God to take care of all my problems. Let me tell you what the Hebrew word here for wait actually means. The word wait in this passage in Hebrew is kavah, which means to bind together, to expect, and to wait upon. This passage in Isaiah 40:30-31 literally means draw closer to God and he will renew your strength. Come on, somebody, this is some good stuff here today. If you don't start drawing closer to God, then you're not going to have your strength renewed. You need to keep moving towards God. You need to keep pressing towards the mark. You need to keep running the race in order to receive strength. If you have a spirit of expectation and come close to God, then he will help you finish the race. Waiting in this scenario is productive in nature. It's not sitting on your couch waiting for God to give you instructions. It's pursuing God and expecting Him to accomplish His plan. I'll freely admit that I've made some mistakes. I've sinned, and I've messed up big time in my life many times. But by the grace of God, I continue to get back up and keep fighting. I'm not going to stop for anything. I'm not going to turn back, and I encourage you today to do the same. I don't care what you've done, where you've been, how many times you have fallen on the ground, but you still need to continue to get back up and keep fighting. Keep your eyes on the prize. Lay aside every weight and continue to run that race that is set before you. If you're struggling, then at least that is a sign that you're putting up a fight. If you don't feel a struggle, then you're likely letting sin win in areas of your life. This race isn't easy. This race has its hills and its valleys, but if you keep moving, then God will part the obstacles in your life and you can walk through safely. Keep moving, man of God. Keep moving, woman of God. Keep moving, child of God. You can reach the end of this race. You'll make it to the destination as long as you keep running in the right direction. And if you're someone today who hasn't started the race yet, then I encourage you, start running. Take that first step. You won't regret it. Seek God and you will find Him. There is a prize that awaits at the end of this life for every believer. That is completely worth the fight. Jesus is calling for some people to take up their cross and follow Him to the end of their days. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you have a great day.